I'm Spencer Mazyck, and joining me now is lawyer turned White House Deputy Cabinet Secretary Ruchi Bhowmik. She was also the Deputy Assistant to President Barack Obama. Welcome, Ruchi. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Ruchi, before we get to your career path, I want to ask you, why did you go to law school? Because as you know, I interviewed your sister, Shanali, who is a lawyer turned indie rock musician, and she said that grad school of some kind was always expected in your family. Is that right?
Yes. And in fact, as South Asians, we chose the path that is often considered the path of those who didn't manage to score well on their MCATs. So I don't know how familiar you are with South Asians, but the expectation is generally that you're going to med school. And for some reason, I managed to escape that expectation from a very young age. And even entering college, I expected to go to law school. So yes, grad school was expected. The question was which one. And what my sister didn't tell you is that she actually was the one who was more likely to go to med school.
Yes, because she had an interest in math. Is that right? She had a very strong interest in math.
She was actually the scientist between the two of us. And she, I don't know if she did me a favor or a disservice by going to law school before I did, but our parents were stuck with two lawyers, which in the South Asian community is not quite a stigma, but not quite as an honorific as being the parents of two doctors. So, but they've fared well. They've forgiven us.
Yes, they did. They certainly have fared well. You went to Yale for undergrad and UVA for law school. So what did you do immediately after law school?
You know, immediately after law school, I did what so many law students do, and I went straight to a firm. And at one of my law school reunions, I think it was the 10-year reunion, I actually won a prize for having spent the shortest amount of time at a law firm. I often tell people I spent a year at the law firm. I, in fact, spent about 9 months.
Wow.
And and it was not because, it was actually one of the best experiences I could have ever hoped for at a law firm. I had fantastic training. I have mentors from that experience that I still rely on today. So I only have great things to say about that experience, but it was very clear to me early on that it was not my passion. And if I really wanted to pursue what truly interested me, I needed to get out before those golden handcuffs really got a hold of me.
Well, so tell us, how did you arrive, though, at that specific decision to leave? Because after the law firm, you went to the Brady Center to prevent gun violence. So how did you arrive at that decision?
That was, in law school, I was very active in the Legal Aid Society. I did a lot of public interest law in law school. And so that was always in the back of my mind as a potential career path. And once I was practicing law at the law firm, I had the opportunity to do some policy work. Being in Washington, D.C., there is obviously this sort of strange mix of legal and policy work that you find even at law firms. And I was very fortunate to have some of that experience as a first-year associate. And that really got me thinking about policy generally and whether I could find a legal job that would actually provide me the opportunity to do policy work. And that's what led me to the Brady Center. And again, I was a litigator. I was a staff attorney. And but I also had an opportunity to do policy work at the same time as I was actually working on, cases that were being tried across the country. So again, another fantastic experience. But through that experience, I really realized that my true passion and interest was policy, and it wasn't the litigation. Litigation is litigation whether you're doing it for the prevention of gun violence or you're doing it on behalf of your private sector clients. It's the nuts and bolts are going to be the same, but the policy piece is what truly intrigued me, and that actually led me from the Brady Center to my next step, which was to go to the Hill.
Exactly. And so just back at the Brady Center, though, would you say that you were at least a little bit interested in the cause? Did you support the cause there?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
That was not born of purely an interest in policy. That was also born of an interest in the issues at hand. And the Brady Center does this tremendous work on behalf of gun violence victims and promoting gun safety across the country. And they continue that work today. And it was my interest in those issues that led me to the Brady Center. But it was also an interest in being able to work on policy, on an issue that was important to me.
And as you mentioned, after the Brady Center, you went to the Hill where you worked for Oregon Senator Ron Wyden and later Senator Barack Obama. Can you tell us what were your responsibilities for each of them?
So in Ron Wyden's office, my title was Judiciary and Education Counsel. And something that a lot of people don't necessarily know is that Senate budgets are allocated on the basis of population. So the population of Oregon is obviously quite small, and so Senator Wyden was given a smaller budget and therefore had a smaller staff. And as a result, I had this opportunity to work on issues across the board, ranging from judiciary issues, which are issues that the Judiciary Committee handles, ranging from counterterrorism issues to civil rights issues, voting rights issues, immigration issues. I was able to do those issues and at the same time handled issues that ranged from education to welfare to housing to homeland security, to international trade. I had this portfolio that very few people on the Hill enjoy. It was extraordinarily diverse, and in retrospect, I realized it was quite a challenge because of its diversity, but at the same time, it actually gave me this breadth of experience that has served me very well throughout the remainder of my career.
Well, and how did you meet then Senator Obama?
That is a story where I have to say, it was my great fortune. I was very happy to be working for Senator Ron Wyden. I remain a huge fan of his, and he is a tremendous legislator and senator, and the people of Oregon are very well served by him. So despite being in a great place, I was actually contacted by the folks that were helping then the newly elected senator from Illinois, Senator Obama, staff up. And they reached out to me and said, can you send us your resume? And the way the Senate works is when a new senator comes in, they literally put out a box in this hallway. And you go on by and you can drop off your resume. It would have never occurred to me. Seriously, it's really.
I love that.
It's so analog. It's really actually it's very charming. But it would have never occurred to me to drop my resume off in that box. And as you can imagine, Senator Obama, coming off this tremendous 2004 convention speech, was drawing so much attention and garnering so much excitement and generating so much excitement. You know, I wasn't going to apply to him on my own, but when they suggested that I send in my resume and consider moving into the senator's office, I obviously took advantage of that opportunity. And
so you were working for the senator then for over 3 years before he became president. And did you expect to follow him to the White House? Was that an expectation of yours?
I would say when you take a job with a U.S. senator, you should never expect to end up in a White House or in the White House. It's not that should never be your expectation. And obviously, it's a privilege to be able to work in the White House. So it was never an expectation, but once he won the election, obviously it was a hope that I would have that opportunity. And I feel so fortunate that I was able to join the administration on day one, January 20th, 2009.
And tell us what your initial job was there at the White House.
My first job actually was policy advisor to the Office of the Chief of Staff. So again, sort of hearkening back to my experience in Senator Wyden's office and then continuing with the experience I generated in Senator Obama's office as both legislative counsel and legislative director, I was exposed to so many different issues, again, ranging from education issues to welfare issues to housing issues to healthcare issues. This breadth of experience and exposure served me so well in the Chief of Staff's office, because when an issue would arise, people ask me, what issues do you handle? What policy areas do you handle? And I would say, well, pretty much all of them outside of major foreign policy, war-related issues are ones I might handle. And it shocked people.
Yeah, that sounds overwhelming to me. That sounds incredibly overwhelming to me.
I think there's probably, all administrations have to be overwhelming to a certain degree. But I have to say the people that are in the White House aren't folks that are easily overwhelmed, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes sense. Perfect sense. And can you tell us, how did you transition from that role to your most recent roles of Deputy Cabinet Secretary and Deputy Assistant?
Well, again, although I would argue very few of my career changes have been planned, if you will, it is truly amazing how I've been able to build on my experiences along the way. Working in the Chief of Staff's office, I had the privilege of working with all of the cabinet members and working with all of the agencies, and I really got a great understanding of the assets that are across the federal government. That exposure and that understanding has served me quite well as I transitioned into Deputy Cabinet Secretary, where I was one of the chief liaisons between the White House and all of the federal government. I already knew the cabinet secretaries. I already knew chiefs of staff. I already knew agency org charts, and that really allowed me to sort of jump in, from the get-go as Deputy Cabinet Secretary. And again, my past experience really served me well for that job.
And Ruchi, you have recently resigned from those roles. Can you tell us why?
Every once in a while, especially after the election, people ask me, are you going to stick around for another 4 years? And I think they're often surprised by the look of shock on my face at even the question. The average tenure of a White House staffer is 2 years. So having lasted over 4 years, I had already beat the curve. And it is probably one of the best experiences I'll ever have in my life, one of the best work experiences, most definitely. But in terms of the commitment, the hours that are committed, the mental space that you have to commit to those jobs, you are on call 24/7, and that, in terms of work-life balance, in terms of personal health, probably as well, is just not sustainable. I have nothing but awe and admiration for my colleagues who are able to be there because the president needs them, and their expertise and their experience is going to serve him so well, the administration so well, and the American people so well. But I have 2 little girls, and all they know is me working for Barack Obama, whether it was in the Senate or the White House. But I also want them to know that, you know what, some moms actually do have dinner with their children on a weekday.
Right.
That's actually, and that's something I would love to do at some point as well. So.
Well, and not many people can say that they've worked for Mr. Obama for over 7 years. So would you consider him a family friend at this point?
Oh, he is definitely. I feel so privileged to have had the opportunity to work for him in the Senate, because obviously it was a very different environment. He had an open door policy. We got to know each other on a very personal level, and in a way that the White House just can't afford. He just does not have the same time or availability, nor should he, as he had in the Senate. So yes, he has. He is I consider him a friend, and I just feel so fortunate to have gotten to know him before he became, the president, because he is an extraordinary person, and I just feel very lucky.
Well, so what's next for you, Ruchi? Where do you go from here?
So I've been given an opportunity to work directly for a CEO of a large multinational company, and I'm very excited about the opportunity to learn a new industry, and also hopefully apply the skills that I've acquired both as an attorney in my previous lives, and also as someone who has been in the White House and seen how sort of the highest level of the U.S. government operates.
Well, and we're sure that that will happen for you. We can't wait to find out exactly what that is a little bit down the road, a little later down the road. But as I mentioned earlier, your sister is an indie rock musician. So can you tell me, are your parents equally proud of both your career paths, as different as they may be?
I think our parents are they have a lot of humility, and they have never been ones to crow about their daughters. So there's always been this expectation from them that we will do amazing things. And as a result of that expectation, they never seem terribly surprised by what we've been able to accomplish. But they definitely, and I can see it now, there is this tremendous pride in what we've done. And now that I have 2 daughters of my own and seeing them interact with them, I know they hope that my 2 daughters, as I hope, will be as sort of hardworking and as driven as their aunt and their mom are.
Yes, maybe one will actually be a musician and the other will go off to work for the president. So,
well, you know, we have that potential. One of them's already said she will be a rock star. She's 5 years old. She's quite sure of it. She's quite sure of it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Ruchi. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Spencer. It's great. Great talking to you.
For more information on this or other topics, subscribe to BloombergLaw.com. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for joining us. Bye, everybody.